Algebra. In this video, we're going to combine algebra and geometry. The first things we're going to look at are vertical angles, and then we're going to look at similar triangles with me, Catherine. So let's look at vertical angles. Let's find the measure of the marked angles. Well, one thing we have to remember way back from geometry is that vertical angles are congruent. Angles are congruent when they have the same size in degrees. This is the symbol for congruent. And for our picture, we could say angle A is congruent to angle B. Now let me show you how to solve it. You're going to die. This is so easy. Since angle A is congruent to angle B, in algebra, we could actually say that 4x plus 25, or angle A, is equal to 7x plus 9, angle B. I took out the parentheses and the degrees, and now it's just a simple process of algebra. I like to get rid of the x's first, so I'm going to subtract 7x from both sides. That gives me negative 3x plus 45 equals 9. And now I want to get negative 3x by itself. So the opposite of adding is subtracting. So I'm going to subtract 45 from both sides. This gives us negative 3x equals negative 36. We still need to get x by itself, so we're going to divide by negative 3, which gives us 12. But the question asks us to find the measure of angle A and the measure of angle B. So what we have to do is go back and see that angle A is 4x plus 25. Since we know what x is, we're just going to put 12 in for x. We're going to get 48 plus 45, which gives us 93 degrees. So the measure of angle A is 93 degrees. Now we need to remember for angle B. Angles are congruent when they are the same size. And vertical angles are congruent. So guess what? The measure of angle B is also 93. Some of you are probably asking, hey, Catherine, what if I did 7x plus 9 first? Well, let me prove to you that you're going to get 93 degrees. The first thing we're going to do is write 7x plus 9. We know that x is 12. We're going to end up with 84 plus 9, which gives us, 93 degrees. I want you to practice with this one. You're going to pause the video, find the measure of angle A and the measure of angle B, then press play to check. All right, let's see how you did. Hopefully you remembered from the last one we did that vertical angles are congruent. That means that angle A is congruent to angle B. And congruent means they have the same size in degrees. So all we had to do was make them equal to each other. 3x plus 56 equals 7x plus 8. I rewrote it without the parentheses and the degrees because we don't need that anymore. We're just going to do some algebra. I like to get all the x's on the left side, so I decided to subtract 7x from both sides, which gives us negative 4x plus 56 equals 8. Now, I need to get negative 4x by itself, so I have to subtract 56 from both sides. This gives us negative 4x equals negative 48. The final step, divide by negative 4. This time, we get x is 12. Wow, crazy. That's not our answer though, because remember, we have to find the measure of angle A and the measure of angle B. So let's look at the measure of angle A. Well, we know that x is 12, so I'm going to substitute 12 in for x. That gives us 36 plus 56, which is 92. So the measure of angle A is 92. Because vertical angles are congruent, that means they have the same size, the measure of angle B is also 92. Let me prove it to you. So I'm taking angle B, which is 7x plus 8 degrees. I'm going to put 12 in for x. Gives us 84 plus 8, which is also 92 degrees. Cool. Find the measure of the marked angles. We want to find the measure of angle A and angle B. Now when we look at the picture, we notice that they're not vertical, they're actually adjacent. And if I draw a line, I notice that both of them are on the line. If two or more angles lie in a straight line, the sum of their angles is 180 degrees. Sum is an important word. That means the measure of angle A plus the measure of angle B is 180 degrees. Let's do the algebra part. Well, we're going to take the measure of angle A, which is 2x minus 8, plus the measure of angle B, which is 4x plus 20, and that needs to equal 180 degrees. All I did was take out the parentheses and the degrees, and then I like to put like terms next to each other. Now, all we have to do is collect like terms. 2x plus 4x is 6x, negative 8 plus 20 is 12, and that still equals 180. I want to get 6x by itself, so I'm going to subtract 12 from both sides. This gives us 6x equals 168. And yep, we're going to divide by 6. So we end up with x equals 28. But just like the last couple we did, that's not the measure of anything. But just like the last couple we did, that's not the answer. We need to find the measure of angle A and the measure of angle B. Well, the measure of angle A is 2x minus 8. We know that x is 28, so we get 56 minus 8, which is 48 degrees. So the measure of angle A is 48 degrees. From this, it's really easy to figure out the measure of angle B. We'll just take 180 degrees minus 48 degrees, and that gives us 132 degrees. That means the measure of angle B is 132 degrees. But let's say you're on a test, you get really nervous, you can't remember that. Let's look at the measure of angle B. Well, that's 4x plus 20. We're going to substitute 28 in for 4. We end up with 112 plus 20, which is 132 degrees. Cool. Let's see how you did with this one. Just like the last one, if two or more angles lie in a straight line, the sum of their angles is 180 degrees. That means the measure of angle A plus the measure of angle B is going to equal 180 degrees. So for this one, we're going to have 4x plus 30 plus 3x plus 10. I took the parentheses and the degree symbol away. Then I put like terms next to each other. I like to do that. You don't have to, but I like to. 4x plus 3x is 7x. 30 plus 10 is 40. We're going to subtract 40 from both sides. That gives us 7x equals 140. Divide by 7, and we get x equals 20. Crazy. All right, so now what we have to do is we have to find the measure of angle A. Well, the measure of angle A is 4x plus 30. We're going to put 20 in for x. That gives us 80 plus 30, which turns out to be 110 degrees. So the measure of angle A is 110 degrees. Now I want to point out something here. When we look at our picture, it really doesn't look like angle A is 110 degrees and angle B is smaller. This is a really good example of a picture that's trying to trick you. A lot of students will look at this and they'll say, oh, angle A, oh, that's got to be smaller, and they'll just figure it. So don't let the picture fool you. Make sure you go by the algebra and the rule. Well, now let's do the measure of angle B. Well, angle B is going to be 180 degrees minus 110 degrees, which is 70 degrees. Okay, but if you forget that, let's find the measure of angle B. That's 3x plus 10. We're going to put 20 in for x, and we end up with 70 degrees. Let's talk about triangles for a second. Find the measure of the angles in the triangle. So we want to find the measure of angle A, B, and C. If 3 interior angles in a triangle, now we need to know the fact that the 3 interior angles in a triangle will always add up to 180 degrees. So we're going to take the measure of angle A plus the measure of angle B plus the measure of angle C, and that should equal 180 degrees. So I took out the degrees, and then I took out the parentheses. So I listed it x minus 8 plus 4x plus 20 plus x minus 12, and then I put like terms together. X plus 4x plus x is 6x. Negative 8 plus 20 minus 12 is, hey, 0. Now we're going to divide by 6, and it turns out that x is 30. But remember, this is not the answer to the question. We need to find the measures of angle A, B, and C. Well, the measure of angle A is x minus 8. When we put 30 in for x, we end up with 22 degrees. So the measure of angle A is 22 degrees. The measure of angle B is 4x plus 20. When we put 30 in for x, we end up with 120 plus 20, which is 140 degrees. That means the measure of angle B is 140 degrees. And last but not least, the measure of angle C is x minus 12. So that's 30 minus 12, and that gives us 18 degrees. So let's test it. The measure of angle A plus the measure of angle B plus the measure of angle C should be 180 degrees. And you know what? It is! Now you're going to try this one. You're going to pause the video, find the measures of angles A, B, and C, and then press play to check. All right, let's see how you did. Let's remember the rule first. The 3 interior angles in a triangle will always add up to 180 degrees. That means the measure of angle A plus the measure of angle B plus the measure of angle C is 180 degrees. For this one, I just substituted in 3x plus 20 for A, x for B, 2x plus 10 for C. I put like terms next to each other, which gives us 3x plus 2x plus 20 plus 10. 3x plus x plus 2x is 6x, and 20 plus 10 is 30. I'm going to subtract 30 from both sides, which gives us 6x equals 150. From there, I'm going to divide by 6, and x is 25. We're not done though, remember, because we need to find the measure of the angles. So the measure of angle A is 3x plus 20. I put 25 in for x, and it turns out that the measure of angle A is 95 degrees. The measure of angle B is just x, so the measure of angle B is just 25. The measure of angle C is 2x plus 10. When we substitute in 25 for x, we end up with 50 plus 10, which gives us 60. So the measure of angle C is 60. Let's check it. Let's check it. The measure of angle A plus the measure of angle B plus the measure of angle C, I almost said 60. No, measure of angle C should equal 180. And of course, 95 plus 25 plus 60 is 180. Let's look at similar triangles. Similar triangles are the same shape, but not necessarily the same size. In this video, we're only going to look at triangles, but we could have similar rectangles, similar circles, and so on. In this one, we can say triangle ABC is similar to triangle EFG. That little squiggly line there, that means similar. Now, similar is different than congruent. So what does similar mean? Well, two triangles are said to be similar if their corresponding angles are congruent, that means the same, and the corresponding sides are in proportion. So the corresponding angles of similar figures are the same. Now let's look at what it means by proportion. Proportion is a fraction. Hopefully you kind of remember that. And how I like to do it is to think of the big triangle segment over little triangle segment. We're comparing them. That's a proportion. So for this one, we can say the segment AC is similar to segment EG. Segment CB is similar to segment GF, and segment AB is similar to EF. All these fractions are equivalent to each other. They equal each other. Let's look at an example. For this one, we want to solve for the missing side. Now we're going to actually solve for x. One thing to remember is that corresponding sides are proportional. That means they make a fraction. I like to put big triangle over little triangle, but you can have little triangle over big triangle. It really doesn't matter. But in the big triangle, I have 12. And in the little triangle, I have 9. Those are corresponding sides. So we're going to write 12 over 9. Now let's look at the x. We have x and 6. In the big triangle, it's x. Little triangle, it's 6. And now all we have to do is solve. Do you remember what we're going to do? Cross multiply. 12 times 6 and 9 times x. That gives us 72 equals 9x divided by 9, and it turns out that x is 8. And that's all there is to it. But you're probably wondering, I don't get it. I don't see how that works. Well, let's look at 12 over 9 is 4 over 3. And 8 over 6 is also 4 over 3. That's why we can say corresponding sides are proportional, because they both reduce to 4/3. You're going to pause the video, solve for the missing sides, and then write the answer as an improper fraction. Yep, you're going to end up with a fraction for an answer. Now this one was a little tough, but that's okay. I still like big triangle over little triangle. So we're going to have 7x over 28, and that's going to equal 5x over 2. So I have 7x over 28, notice the fraction, and then I have 5x plus 2 over 2, another fraction. Just like we did before, we're going to cross multiply. 7x times 2 equals 28 times 5x plus 2. That gives us 14x equals 140x plus 56. I like to get all the x's on the left side, and for this one, we really want to do that because 14x is already by itself. So we're going to subtract 140x from both sides. This gives us negative 126 equals 56. When we divide by negative 126, we end up with x equals 4/9. Now let's look at our picture. The two sides have x in it, but not alone. So the first side, we're going to have to take 7 times x. So we'll take 7 times 4/9, which is 28 over 9. Remember, the question asks us to write it as an improper fraction. 5x plus 2, we're going to put 4/9 in for x, and that ends up being 38 over 9. I hope you like this video. Make sure to subscribe. If you have a request, let me know at piecrustable@gmail.com. And pin me to Pinterest. Until the next video, thanks for watching.